Welcome to the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu.
Today we're taking a deep dive into the Social Skills Guidebook, Manage Shyness, by Chris MacLeod, MSW.
Think of this as your shortcut, your guide, really, to feeling more comfortable and, well, effective in those sometimes tricky social situations.
Yeah, and we're not just skimming the surface here.
No, definitely not. We're extracting the key mental shifts, conversation tactics, and, friendship building strategies so you can actually put them into action.
Exactly. Whether you feel like a complete beginner or maybe just want to fine-tune your social game, this exploration is designed for you.
And it's inspired by the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu, offering that practical approach. It's incredibly common to feel overwhelmed socially, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And we're here to provide a clear, practical path forward.
What's really great about this guidebook, I think, is its down-to-earth approach.
Mm,
It doesn't treat social discomfort as some kind of inherent flaw you have,
right.
but more as a collection of understandable feelings.
Mm.
Shyness, anxiety, insecurity, discouragement.
Things we all feel sometimes.
Exactly. And feelings that can, thankfully, be managed and improved.
Okay, so let's get right into the core of it. The mental barriers.
Yeah.
The book highlights how shyness makes us, hyper aware of how we're being perceived.
Right, constantly monitoring. While social anxiety brings that really intense fear of judgment.
Oof, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got insecurity, that inner critic just chipping away at your self-worth.
And pessimism, too, which can kind of sabotage your social efforts before you even start.
And these aren't just vague feelings floating around, are they? They have real, tangible effects on how we behave.
Absolutely. The guidebook points out that these feelings often lead to a pattern of, well, avoidance.
Like steering clear of parties or events.
Yeah, steering clear of social gatherings altogether.
Yeah,
And even when you do attend something, there's that urge to make a quick exit, right?
definitely felt that.
Plus, you become hesitant to take even small social risks. Things like just introducing yourself or asking someone a question.
It sounds like a self-reinforcing cycle.
It really is. Feeling bad leads to behaviors that then, hinder your social growth.
So the big question then, how do we start to dismantle these barriers? The book talks about shifting your mindset. Sounds easier said than done, though.
Well, it does require conscious effort, no doubt, but the fundamental idea is really empowering.
Yeah.
Your thoughts have a huge impact on your social comfort levels.
Okay.
A significant chunk of the guidebook focuses on identifying and tackling what it calls counterproductive thinking.
Counterproductive thinking, like those automatic negative thoughts.
Exactly, the ones that tend to surface in social contexts. The core insight here is that our thoughts are often the biggest hurdle, and learning to recognize these mental traps is really the first step to feeling more comfortable.
This is where it gets really practical then. The book breaks down these negative thought patterns into common cognitive distortions.
Yeah, those sneaky ways our minds can kind of warp reality.
Right, like jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, which includes mind reading, that feeling that you just know what someone else is thinking negatively about you.
Like assuming, oh, everyone at this party thinks I'm boring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or there's fortune telling, where you predict a negative outcome like it's already a fact.
I know this networking event is going to be a total disaster.
Precisely. And these distortions can be incredibly powerful in shaping our social experiences.
What are some others?
Well, another common one is magnification and minimization.
Okay, how does that work?
So someone might blow a minor social slip-up way out of proportion, thinking, oh, I stumbled over my words. Now everyone thinks I'm awkward.
Right, magnifying the negative.
And at the same time, minimizing something positive, like dismissing a genuine compliment as just politeness.
Or like starting college and feeling you have to make a best friend immediately, magnifying that pressure.
Good example. Or maybe someone's a great cook, but minimizes that, not seeing how bringing a dish to a potluck could be a great way to connect.
Okay, yeah. And then there's emotional reasoning.
Right, where you mistake your feelings for facts. So thinking, I feel anxious talking to this person, therefore I must be coming across as awkward.
Even if you outwardly seem fine.
Exactly. And who hasn't fallen into the should statements trap?
Oh, yeah. I should always know what to say.
Or other people should initiate conversations with me. Those rigid, often unrealistic rules we set.
Definitely.
And don't forget labeling. Attaching a negative, simplistic label to yourself like, I'm just shy, as if it's permanent.
Instead of seeing shyness as a feeling or a behavior.
Right. Or filtering, where you focus only on the one negative comment after a presentation and ignore all the positive ones.
Ugh, yes. And finally, black and white thinking.
That's seeing social situations in extremes, all or nothing.
Like, if I'm not the life of the party, there's no point in even being here.
Precisely. Zero nuance.
Wow, that's a really comprehensive list, and it's so helpful just to put names to these, often unconscious thought patterns.
It really is.
But the guidebook doesn't just diagnose the problem, right? It offers a solution. What's the actual process for challenging these thoughts?
Yeah, it provides a clear four-step method.
Yep.
First, cultivate awareness. You need to get better at noticing when these negative thoughts are actually happening.
So, like, actively monitoring your inner dialogue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially in and around social situations. It takes practice.
Okay, step 1, awareness. What's next?
Step 2, examine the evidence. Objectively look at it.
Yeah.
What actual facts support this thought, and what evidence contradicts it.
So really questioning it, like a detective.
Kind of, yeah. Then comes the crucial third step, developing more realistic and balanced alternatives.
And the book stresses this isn't about forced positivity, right?
Not at all. It's about finding a more reasonable, nuanced perspective. So instead of everyone here thinks I'm boring, a balanced alternative might be.
I've only talked to a few people. Some seemed interested, some didn't, which is normal.
Exactly. That's a great example, which leads to the fourth step.
Which is
Continuous questioning. These thought patterns are often deeply ingrained, so it takes ongoing effort to challenge them over time.
and replace them with those more balanced perspectives.
Right. And the guidebook really stresses being compassionate with yourself through this whole thing.
Treat yourself like you'd treat a friend going through it.
Precisely.
The book even gives specific examples, which really helps.
Yeah, like if you catch yourself thinking, if I invite this person out, they'll definitely say no.
A more realistic alternative could be,
Well, they might be busy, or they might say yes, I won't know unless I try. It acknowledges the uncertainty without jumping to the worst conclusion.
or if you think you just can't become more outgoing.
The reality is that even small, consistent steps outside your comfort zone do lead to improvements over time. It's not about flipping a switch overnight.
Right, it's a process.
Okay, shifting gears slightly, the guidebook also gives very practical, hands-on strategies for managing anxiety in the moment.
Which is huge because just knowing your thoughts are distorted doesn't always stop the physical feeling of anxiety.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that feeling some nervousness in social situations is completely normal. It's not something to eliminate entirely.
So what kind of techniques does it suggest for when that anxiety pops up when you're alone, maybe before or after an event?
Well, one strategy is called writing out the symptoms.
Writing it out, like not fighting it.
Yeah, basically acknowledging the anxiety without wrestling with it. Reminding yourself that intense anxiety is usually temporary, it will pass.
Okay.
Deep breathing exercises are also highlighted, like the 4-7-8 technique.
In for 4, hold for 7, out for 8.
That's the one. It helps activate your body's relaxation response. Other things like calming music, guided meditation, or even some physical exercise can help release that pent-up energy.
Like letting a wave wash over you instead of trying to build a dam against it.
That's a great analogy.
What about that pre-event anxiety, the kind that builds up beforehand?
A lot of the same ideas apply: distraction, relaxation techniques, challenging those worry thoughts. But the guidebook also adds specific tips like preparing a few conversation starters or questions in advance.
So you have something in your back pocket if you freeze up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It also emphasizes just accepting that feeling a bit nervous is okay, and remembering that your outward signs of anxiety like blushing or a shaky voice are often much less noticeable to others than they feel to you.
That's a good reminder. We're often our own worst critics.
For sure. And a really practical tip is to figure out if you tend to feel more comfortable listening or talking when you're anxious.
And then lean into that at the start.
Yeah, lean into that initially to help you settle in.
Okay. And what if you're right in the middle of a social event and bam, a wave of anxiety hits?
Again, the advice is consistent. Try to write out that immediate spike. Remind yourself it'll likely subside.
Have those backup questions ready?
Yep. And give yourself permission to maybe focus more on listening for a bit, or talking if that feels better, whatever feels more grounding in that moment.
So the goal isn't to eliminate anxiety, but to manage the intensity so it doesn't derail the whole interaction.
Precisely. It's about coping, not complete erasure.
Now, I found the section on reducing fears and insecurities through actual real-world experiences really powerful.
Me too.
It makes sense that just thinking differently isn't always enough. You actually have to do the things you fear.
Exactly. The guidebook really underscores that facing your social fears in a gradual, controlled way is essential to weaken those negative learned associations in your brain.
Like retraining your brain, you said.
Yeah, essentially. Situation equals nervous cue. You want to overwrite that.
Okay, so how do we translate that into action? How do you actually start facing fears?
Well, the first crucial step, honestly, is genuine readiness for change. This stuff takes commitment and effort.
You have to want it.
You do. Then the guidebook recommends creating what's called a fear hierarchy.
A fear hierarchy, like a list.
Yeah, a rank list of social situations that trigger anxiety for you, ordered from the least uncomfortable to the most anxiety-provoking.
Okay, like climbing a ladder.
Exactly. The idea is to start with the lower rungs.
That makes so much sense. You wouldn't try running a marathon if you've never jogged.
Precisely. Start small, build up. Once you have your hierarchy, you begin planning exposure sessions.
Targeting those less scary situations first.
Right. And the key is to gradually increase the intensity or the duration of your exposure over time.
And during these sessions?
Actively use the coping skills you've learned.
Yeah.
Those relaxation techniques we talked about.
Okay.
And afterwards, super important, take some time to debrief.
Debrief? Like review how it went.
Yeah. Challenge any negative thoughts that popped up. And, importantly, acknowledge what went well, even if it feels like a tiny victory.
Celebrate the small wins.
Absolutely. And consistency is vital here. Regularly facing your fears, kind of like regular exercise, helps solidify your progress.
And setbacks. What if you try something and it feels awful?
It's important to be kind to yourself. Setbacks are totally normal, but you'll likely find that regaining your courage after a small step back is quicker than building it initially.
Like building tolerance, maybe. Small doses regularly are better than one huge, overwhelming leap.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So all this work on our thoughts, our anxiety, facing fears, it naturally leads towards building self-esteem and confidence, right?
It does. And the book offers an interesting take on self-esteem itself.
Yeah. What's the perspective?
It makes this valuable distinction between our inherent worth as individuals, which is unconditional, you just have it,
Okay.
and the self-esteem that we get from our actions, our behaviors, our accomplishments.
So the feeling of competence.
Right. When our lives align with our values and we're actively pursuing meaningful goals, our self-esteem tends to grow. It's earned, in a way.
Building that sense of self-efficacy, believing you can handle things.
Exactly. And creating a supportive environment for yourself is also key.
The guidebook also distinguishes between different types of confidence.
Yeah, it talks about calmly confident, which comes from genuine experiences of success. It's rooted in reality. Versus that more fleeting, emotion-driven, psyched-up confidence, which can be less reliable in the long run.
Like temporary hype.
Kind of. True. Lasting confidence, it emphasizes, grows slowly. It's a gradual process.
And overcoming social anxieties directly feeds into that, I imagine.
Absolutely. Each time you successfully navigate a situation that used to feel daunting, your belief in your own social abilities gets stronger.
Okay, let's shift gears now into section 2. This is where the guidebook gets into developing our actual conversation skills.
Right, the nuts and bolts.
It starts with just laying a basic foundation, understanding conversations as that back and forth exchange.
And what's really reassuring here is how the book acknowledges that awkward silences happen.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, and those moments of not knowing what to say,
Yeah.
totally normal. It advises against putting too much pressure on yourself for constant, seamless dialogue.
That takes some pressure off.
It does. It even offers practical transition phrases like, speaking of which, or that makes me think of, to help navigate topic shifts more smoothly.
Little tools to keep things flowing.
Exactly. The guidebook also touches briefly on staying engaged in group chats and the value of having a few general topics or questions ready beforehand.
Especially if you tend to get nervous.
Right. And it really normalizes that initial awkwardness that can sometimes happen.
Which I think is so important for people who feel self-conscious about their conversation skills.
Totally. It also gives some very practical advice on how to gracefully exit a conversation that just isn't clicking.
Okay. And then it tackles those often dreaded awkward silences head on.
The key message there is, silence isn't automatically failure.
Right.
The guidebook suggests several ways to gently break a lull, like asking open-ended questions.
Questions that need more than a yes-no answer.
Exactly. Or making an observation about your shared environment. Or just introducing a new, related topic.
Gentle ways to restart the engine.
Pretty much.
Now, starting a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah.
That can feel like a big hurdle for a lot of people. What specific guidance does the book offer there?
It covers a whole range of scenarios, actually,
Yeah.
from talking to people you already know to uh, approaching complete strangers in public.
Okay.
It gives concrete examples of conversation openers and suggests focusing early on finding common ground.
Like observations about the situation.
Yeah, or using a situational prompt.
Yeah.
And a really important piece of advice it gives is being willing to take a bit more initiative at the start.
Especially in getting things going.
Right. Asking questions, offering your own related thoughts, maybe doing a bit more of the talking initially until the other person warms up.
Okay. Taking the lead a bit.
Just enough to get the ball rolling.
So, building on those first interactions, how do we encourage deeper connections? The book talks about this, right?
It does.
Hmm.
And it acknowledges, not every chat will lead to a deep connection. That's okay.
Yeah.
But there are definitely things you can do to increase the chances. Well, authenticity is key. Being yourself allows genuine connections to form.
Makes sense.
Actively listening to find shared interests is huge. Ask follow-up questions, show real curiosity, and sharing parts of yourself appropriately, starting milder, gradually increasing self-disclosure, and reciprocating when others share. That builds trust.
So not oversharing right away, but not being a closed book either.
Exactly. The book cautions against being overly guarded or secretive, as that can create distance. And finally, it highlights self-acceptance. Being okay with your own flaws makes it easier for others to connect with the real you.
Being comfortable in your own skin. Now, ending conversations, that's a skill too, right? Doing it gracefully.
Definitely underestimated. The guidebook offers examples tailored for different situations, casual chats, parties, networking events.
Okay.
It also points out nonverbal cues you can use to signal you're wrapping up.
Like turning slightly away, maybe?
Could be, yeah. And it gives a helpful perspective on those sometimes ambiguous closing lines like, let's get together soon. Acknowledging the intent isn't always clear.
Right. Sometimes it's just politeness.
Sometimes, and for those times, you're stuck with someone who talks a lot. It even suggests assertive but polite ways to interject and bring things to a close.
Good to have a strategy for that.
For sure.
Okay. Group conversations, they have their own dynamics. How does the book help with navigating those?
It highlights the key differences between one-on-one and groups and offers practical ways to join a group conversation.
Like how? Just walk up.
Well, maybe introducing yourself clearly, or sometimes just sidling in and listening for a moment before jumping in. Or maybe starting by talking to just one person in the group first.
Ease your way in.
Yeah. It also gives advice on how to sort of manage the flow in group chats. Make sure quieter people get a chance to speak.
Being a good group participant.
Right. And for keeping chats going with people you know within a group, it suggests catching up, finding out what they've been up to.
The book also addresses that tricky situation of being the new person in a group where everyone else knows each other really well.
Oh, yeah. That can be tough.
Yeah.
It emphasizes that it's not always about you if it feels hard to break in.
Great reminder.
And encourages persistence, trying to connect. And for parties specifically, it suggests acknowledging external factors, not putting too much pressure on yourself, actively approaching people, maybe giving yourself a small role or task, or joining activities.
Making it less daunting.
Trying to, yeah.
Then the guidebook gets into empathy, which feels really crucial. It differentiates between two types.
Right. Emotional empathy, that's feeling with others, feeling their emotions.
Okay.
And cognitive empathy, that's understanding their perspective, why they might feel that way.
Understanding the what and the why.
Exactly. And the book stresses both are valuable for strong relationships and avoiding, insensitive behavior. It particularly highlights the downsides of lacking cognitive empathy.
Like what?
Like unintentionally boring people because you're not reading their cues or offending them or just disregarding what's important to them.
Okay, so how can we actively work on our empathy skills?
The guidebook suggests consciously thinking about basic human needs, acceptance, feeling understood, respecting the role of emotions, even if you don't logically agree. Importantly, getting in touch with your own emotions helps. Self-awareness is key.
Understand yourself to understand others better.
Right. And finally, just paying close attention to both verbal and nonverbal cues people give off. Tuning in.
Which ties perfectly into listening skills. The book distinguishes hearing from active listening.
Yeah, active listening is described as purposeful, focused, empathetic engagement, not just letting sound waves hit your ears.
Oh, right. And the benefits.
Stronger connections, providing real support, resolving conflicts better, lots of positives. It gives concrete tips, give the speaker space, Seriously consider their perspective, be non-judgmental.
And things to avoid.
Oh yeah, interrupting, seeming disengaged, filling silences too quickly, finishing their sentences.
Oh, I hate when people do that.
Me too. Or abrupt topic changes, or just giving those token responses without really listening.
We've all been guilty of some of those, probably.
Probably. Awareness is the first step.
Okay, so communication isn't just words. Nonverbal cues are huge. The book covers reading those too.
It does. It explains that while nonverbals offer valuable insights, they aren't always definitive. People can control them, styles differ, some are subtle.
So interpret with caution.
Exactly. But it discusses key signals: eye contact, facial expressions, posture, gestures, use of space, touch, and important clusters of signals like cues for approachability or nervousness or disagreement.
How do you get better at reading them?
Learning common expressions, consciously practicing observation skills in everyday interactions, paying attention.
And it also helps us improve our own nonverbal communication.
Absolutely. Emphasizing the importance of aligning your nonverbals with your message. So if you want to seem friendly, your body language should reflect that.
Makes sense. What areas does it cover?
Key areas like eye contact, facial expressions, posture, gestures, voice quality, voice conviction, sounding relaxed but assured. Body language generally aiming for confident, relaxed, friendly, open, avoiding nervous fidgeting or bored signals, use of space, use and acceptance of touch, even style and grooming.
Wow, quite comprehensive.
Yeah, it gives actionable advice for each, like aiming for that relaxed but assured tone, respecting boundaries with space, and even suggests seeking feedback on style if needed.
Okay. The book then dives into common conversation mistakes, things to avoid doing.
Right, the pitfalls, general ones like interrupting too much, not contributing enough, dominating the chat, inappropriate humor or topics.
Being too self-centered.
Big one. Giving unsolicited advice, not paying attention, negativity, defensiveness, constant complaining, bragging. The list goes on.
Things that generally turn people off.
Pretty much. The guidebook makes an interesting point, though. Sometimes popular people seem to break these rules.
Yeah, why is that?
Often because they've already built strong rapport, or they're just really good at reading the room and can make up for missteps. But for most of us, avoiding these mistakes is a good baseline.
And if you do slip up,
A brief, sincere apology usually does the trick. Acknowledge it, fix it if possible, move on.
good advice. And who doesn't want to be more likable? The book tackles that too.
It does. While acknowledging that basic compatibility is huge, you won't click with everyone.
Sure.
It outlines ways to enhance likability. Even before you speak things related to physical attractiveness like dress, grooming, fitness, confident body language.
Okay. And once you are talking.
Bringing something positive to the table is key.
Yeah.
Humor, interesting insights, being fun, being a good listener, having more positive than negative personality traits overall.
And being self-aware.
Yeah, self-aware enough to even charmingly acknowledge minor flaws can be endearing. It also clarifies that idea of being nice, distinguishing genuine kindness from just being bland.
Right, not being a doormat.
Exactly. And it touches on being appropriately edgy, understanding trends without losing your values, and generally how to be fun, being intentional about it, using humor, suggesting activities.
And traits that prevent fun.
Being uptight, rigid, overly serious, unable to laugh at yourself. Things that kill spontaneity.
Got it. The final part of this section is on assertiveness. How does the book define that?
Assertiveness is defined as expressing your needs, feelings, and opinions directly and respectfully.
So, not aggressive, not passive.
Exactly, that middle ground. The guidebook clearly distinguishes it from those. It also outlines basic personal rights, respect, saying no, having opinions, making decisions, not being perfect.
Things we should all feel entitled to.
Right. And it busts some myths like assertiveness meaning being rude or always fighting. It's not about that.
What techniques does it offer?
Things like direct statements, using I statements carefully so they don't sound forced, the broken record technique.
Calmly repeating your point.
Yeah. And agreeing with the facts of what someone said, but not necessarily giving in to their demand. Finding common ground without compromising your needs.
Useful tools. Okay, let's move into the final section, section 3, which is all about forming and growing friendships.
A really important area.
It starts by tackling a big one, the fear of rejection.
Yeah, the guidebook acknowledges rejection hurts, it stings, but it emphasizes it's a normal part of social life. It doesn't always mean you did something wrong.
It's not always personal.
Often it isn't. It encourages persistence, trying again, reaching out, while also, of course, respecting boundaries if someone isn't interested.
Finding that balance.
Right, and it reframes trying to make friends. It's not desperate, it's a normal, healthy human desire. It also acknowledges the uncertainty involved. Signals aren't always clear.
Accepting that ambiguity.
Exactly.
So where do we actually find potential friends? Where do we look?
Well, the first crucial step, the book says, is actively putting yourself in environments where you can meet people. You won't meet anyone sitting home alone, usually.
Makes sense.
It suggests leveraging your current contacts, acquaintances, classmates, colleagues. Don't overlook them.
People already in your orbit.
Right. And it gives a diverse list of other places: pursuing hobbies, taking classes, volunteering, online meetups for shared interests, work, school, even just everyday interactions.
Being open to possibilities anywhere.
Exactly. The key is being proactive and persistent, showing up.
Okay, so you've encountered some potential friends. How do you move from just meeting them to actually getting to know them?
This really brings us back to a lot of those conversation skills we already talked about.
Right, initiating, showing interest.
Finding common ground, being open. The guidebook reminds us, again, not every interaction leads to friendship, but by actively engaging in the right places, you significantly up your chances.
Putting in the effort increases the odds. And then comes that vital step, actually making plans to hang out, moving beyond just chatting.
Yeah, the guidebook really stresses making concrete plans, moving beyond the vague, we should hang out sometime.
Which usually means never.
Often, yeah. It suggests proposing specific activities with a time and place. Brainstorming low-pressure ideas, grabbing coffee, checking out a local event. Things that are easy to say yes to.
Keeping it casual initially.
Often, yeah. It also touches on inviting people to group things, maybe considering who else they know. Setting up recurring plans can be great for consistency, too.
Like a regular board game night or something.
Exactly. And it even gives tips on how to express interest in joining plans others are making. The main point. Solid plans beat vague intentions every time.
Definitely. But building strong friendships takes more than just scheduling, right? What makes someone a good friend?
The book outlines several key qualities, starting simply with genuinely liking the person for who they are.
Seems fundamental.
It is. Also being positive and enjoyable to be around, being dependable, offering emotional support when needed.
Being there for them.
Right. Willingness to help, being trustworthy, not taking the friendship for granted, and just generally having good character.
The foundations of a healthy relationship.
Pretty much.
And how do we nurture those initial friendships?
Yeah.
Help them grow closer.
The guidebook suggests prioritizing quality time together, engaging in shared experiences. Even mundane stuff creates bonds.
Shared history.
Exactly. Gradually sharing more of yourself reciprocally. Being that active listener, showing empathy, consistently being a good friend with those qualities we just mentioned, and creating memorable times together, whether big adventures or just meaningful conversations. That helps solidify things.
Making those connections deeper.
Yeah.
Now, joining an existing group of friends, that can feel intimidating, like breaking into a clique.
It definitely can be challenging.
Yep.
Insider jokes, established dynamics, the guidebook acknowledges that.
What strategies does it suggest?
Making an effort to spend time with the group, showing genuine interest in getting to know each person, finding common ground, initiating conversations.
Being proactive within the group setting.
Right, maybe suggesting activities sometimes, but using good judgment. Trying to connect with individual members outside the group can help too.
Building one-on-one connections first.
Can make it easier. And being patient, it takes time. And also accepting that sometimes a particular group just might not be the right fit, and that's okay.
Not forcing it.
Right.
Finally, the book tackles a whole bunch of common obstacles that can get in the way of socializing and making friends. I think a lot of listeners will relate to these.
It covers a really wide range.
Yeah.
Things like living far away, feeling embarrassed about your living situation, lack of transport, lack of money.
Practical barriers.
Yeah. Being underage, being super busy, feeling like you don't fit in, having a history of negative social experiences.
Emotional or historical barriers.
Exactly. Dealing with ongoing shyness or anxiety or just not knowing how to initiate things effectively. For each one, it offers potential solutions and strategies.
Encouraging resourcefulness.
Yeah. And emphasizing not getting discouraged too easily when facing these things.
Good point. The guidebook wraps up this section by stressing the importance of understanding your own social needs and preferences.
Right. Acknowledging that everyone's different, introvert, extrovert, different social batteries, different comfort levels.
It's not one size fits all.
Not at all. Finding your personal social sweet spot. That balance between socializing and alone time is key for sustainable well-being.
Hmm.
It also reminds us that social lives change over time. That's normal. And it offers encouragement for challenging times. Your skills are still there, even if motivation dips. Suggest re-engaging gradually after breaks.
The final message seems really empowering.
It is. It's that with effort and the right strategies, social improvement is absolutely possible. Past difficulties don't define your future. It also mentioned the appendices for more specific info, like on Asperger's autism and further reading.
And the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu provides a fantastic, concise entry point to all these powerful ideas.
Absolutely. A great starting point.
So the core message from this deep dive into the Social Skills Guidebook, Manage Shyness, as featured in the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu, seems clear and really empowering. Social skills aren't fixed traits.
Definitely not. They can be learned, practiced, and significantly improved.
It's about understanding that inner game our thoughts, our feelings, developing effective ways to communicate and connect, and actively taking steps to build the social life you want.
Exactly. And with practical guidance from resources like the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu, becoming more socially comfortable and effective really is within reach for everyone.
What's truly insightful, I think, is recognizing that even small, consistent efforts, they add up, right?
Oh, absolutely. Challenging one negative thought, really listening actively in one conversation, reaching out to one acquaintance, it can create this positive snowball effect in your interactions and your overall well-being.
Thank you for joining us today. Buy the book at the 1 Hour Guide website for more business insights.
And remember to check out the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu for other concise and practical guides.